Okay, everyone, hello and welcome to the 10th meeting of the Community and Protective Services Committee. I'll be calling this meeting to order. Let's welcome everybody in council chambers, staff, and people at committee. We will begin with the council chambers statement. Please check the city website for additional meeting details information. Meetings can be viewed via live streaming on YouTube and the city website. We will begin with the land acknowledgement. The City of London is situated on the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Lenape-Wauk, and Attawandaron. We honor and respect the history, languages, and culture of the diverse Indigenous people who call this territory home. The City of London is currently home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit today. As representatives of the people of the City of London, we are grateful to have the opportunity to work and live in this territory. The City of London is committed to making every effort to provide alternate formats and communication supports for meetings upon request. To make a request specific to this meeting, please contact cpsc@london.ca or call 519-661-2489, extension 2425. I'd like to recognize the members of committee. To my right, I have Ward 1 Councillor Hadley McAllister, Ward 5 Councillor Jerry Pribble, Ward 6 Councillor Sam Trusso, and last but not least, our Vice Chair, Councillor Pelosa, online, Ward 12. I will look to committee for disclosures of pecuniary interest. I see no disclosures, so I'll move to the consent items. I have one pull request for myself. That's item 2.1, the 8th report of the Animal Welfare Community Advisory Committee. So I am looking for a member of the committee to move 2.2 and 2.3 of the consent items. That's Councillor Trusso moving, Councillor Pelosa seconding. And I'll look to committee for any discussion for any of the items. I have Councillor Pelosa. Councillor Pelosa, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just ever so briefly on item 2.2, being the video streaming and select City of London arenas for Alliance hockey members. As a hockey mom myself, thank you for staff for working behind the scenes to make this one possible and doing the agreements with Live Barn as travel hockey and we experience in other cities. It does allow family members who can't join to stream. It allows you to check out the competition if you want. This also has no financial impact directly on the city for cost implications. And from a tourism point of view, I have heard from other hockey parents visiting us that they did have frustration that when they visit other towns hosting tournament weekends, that they had this facility amenity and we did not. So it keeps us more competitive and offers a higher level of quality of service to not only Londoners, but those experience our city. So thank you to staff making this possible and to Alliance Hockey for their work on this too. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Looking to other members of committee who would like to have any remarks on Councillor Pribble.
Thank you, and through the chair to the staff. Financials have already been reiterated, so thank you for that. No cost to the city. The other question I had is, once these cameras are, is this just for the tournament and it's going to come down, or is this 365 days? When I read through the agreement, I didn't see that. Maybe I missed it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Ms. Smith.
Thank you. And through the chair, I'll start and then turn it to my staff who are much more knowledgeable about this. But this is part of why our partnership with Greater London Hockey Association is when families or individuals register for hockey, there will be a box they consent to, and they will pay a fee that covers the cost of the equipment and everything. So you're right, as you and Councillor Pelosi said, there's no cost to the city. So they will be able to watch the games, the practices, teams can watch it afterwards, I believe, and they can tell you more details. The games will stay on a while, so they can look at them as a team, and it can help with performance and everything. So that will allow them to watch the games, and then they disappear. So it's only on during a game, and then it's off. So when we have recreational skating or anything else, these cameras are not on. They're only turned on and turned off when there is a game. Did I miss anything?
Thank you, and through the chair, just in addition to that, they are permanent installations. They are up for the entirety of the season, and they would only stream Alliance hockey members with the organizations identified in the staff report, including any tournaments, regular season games, playoff games, or practices as well.
Thank you, Mr. McGonigal. Councillor Pribble.
Thank you. I have a follow-up as well. Any potential revenue sharing with this organization, or any potential to sell them some boards, advertising, so there is a revenue for the city?
Thank you, Councillor. Back to staff.
Thank you, and through the chair, we do have an advertising and sponsorship program, specifically as it relates to our arenas and rink boards. And like all private industry, they certainly, Live Barn, as the live streaming agent for the Greater London Hockey Association, can certainly do that. At this time, we haven't worked on that, but that certainly will be a piece of the puzzle going forward.
Thank you. Councillor?
Thank you. And for any potential revenue sharing, and I don't know if we done kind of what they do in the other cities, if it's strictly the way it's presented, or if there's any revenue sharing in other municipalities?
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, and through the chair, we have seen a couple of small opportunities for revenue sharing in some very small municipalities. But given the fact that the City of London did not go to the marketplace to procure this solution, it was the Alliance Hockey and the Provincial Sport Organization. And so our agreement is with the Greater London Hockey Association, who is a registered not-for-profit. And so at this time, we have not had those discussions, but certainly as we continue to implement the solution, there may be opportunities for revenue sharing going forward, but this is the starting place for us.
Councillor.
And thank you for that. I'll finish with a comment. As being a father of two boys who were in sports, I think this is very beneficial. I do like it. I think it's a great initiative. I'm just looking at maximizing the opportunities for the city, but the way I heard it, that we'll be looking into that, and thank you for that. Thank you. No more questions.
Thank you, Counselor. I have Counselor Trosso next.
Thank you. Through the chair to staff, will the cameras just be fixed on the game, or will it be able to pan through the audience?
Thank you, Counselor. Back to staff.
Thank you for the question, and through the chair, it is specifically on the field of play, so only on the ice surface.
And also, the participants understand that by virtue of going onto the rink, they understand that they're being videoed and they've consented to that. Probably better to get that as part of the documentation for signing up.
Thank you, Counselor. Back to staff.
Thank you, and through the chair, throughout the Alliance Hockey member organization's registration process, all of their participants have to sign a consent. If individuals do not sign consent, then that particular team of that particular organization, that game would not be live streamed.
Thank you. Counselor, that's all the questions? Okay, thank you. Looking to committee for any further questions, members that haven't spoken. Okay, I had some questions, but they were already kind of asked by the counselor, so no questions for me, so we can go to the next item. Just calling for the next item on the consent agenda, if there's any comments for that. Okay, let's call the question.
I'll vote yes. Trosso votes yes.
Closing the vote, the motion carries 5-0.
Okay, that is it for consent items. That leaves us to scheduled items. We have none. Items for direction, we have the one item that was pulled regarding the Animal Welfare Community Advisory Committee. I do have the vice chair up in the gallery. She has requested delegation. I would look to committee to see if anyone would like to move for 5 minutes. Moved by Councillor Pribble, seconded by Councillor McAllister. No debate on that. Let's call the question.
Trosso votes yes.
Closing the vote, the motion carries 5-0.
Okay.
Hello, Vice Chair. Just tell me when you're ready and I'll start the clock and you have 5 minutes.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Okay, 5 minutes starts now.
All right, thank you very much, and thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm here because our chair, Wendy Brown, is unable to attend. And the reason that I'm here is that when we looked at the agenda, we thought maybe it was a little bit unclear why this was coming before you now and what we were asking you to do. So that's why I'm here, was to just basically provide some clarification on those two questions. So first of all, why is it coming before you now? Back in September, the Animal Welfare Community Advisory Committee received a delegation from a member of the public who was talking about the geese and complaining about the goose poop on a splash pads. And so that's what started it, and we began to investigate it then and research it. And that's the research that's coming before you today. What we found was there's an entire manual on your agenda, and we'd like you to use that as a template for how to address the problem, because quick fixes like relocating them, relocating the geese are really very short term. The geese are going to come back, and if they don't, it's going to be other geese coming back. We feel that changing the habitat is a solution, and there's a lot of case studies in that manual that talk about specifically the kinds of solutions that will work. So what would we like you to do? What we'd like you to do is direct staff to look at if there's any complaints that have come into the city. We don't know as a committee if there have been complaints. Is this a one-time complaint, or is it something that's been happening? Where has it been happening? My guess would be in the parks, particularly around the splash pads, but we don't really know. So if staff would compile a list of places that are like hotspots, and then we could determine where to implement some of these solutions and see how they work. So that's why it's before you at this particular moment, and what we'd like you to do. So unless you have any questions, I hope that clarifies it. Okay?
Thank you, Vice Chair. So we do have some other recommendations coming from that report, so I'd like to vote on those first, and then I do have a motion for the delegation, so I will hand over the chair to the Vice Chair, just for that particular part, but right now, the other motions, which would be, okay, the clerk will. Okay, so right now, we are going to vote on Part A, the attached Animal Welfare Advisory Committee recommendations related to Canada Geese document and habitat modification and Canada Geese source book be forwarded to the Civic Administration for their consideration. B, subject to the approval of the Strategic Communications Division, the printing of the Animal Welfare Community Advisory Committee banner be approved. And C, clauses 1.1, 3.1, 4.1, 5.1, and 5.4, and 5.5 be approved from the committee report. I would need a mover for that. Looking for a mover. This is everything in the report minus a motion that I'll be bringing, which I'll speak to in a second. So I just looking for a mover. Moved by Councilor McAllister. Looking for a seconder. Seconded by Councilor Trusso. Looking to committee for any discussion. Councilor Pelosa.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, just looking to see what your motion would be, as I believe once we deal with receiving the report, it was actually done and it would be a decided matter of committee. So just procedurally through the clerk of, once we receive the report and we've already had the delegation of what you're trying to do. Sorry, just procedurally.
Thank you, Councillor. Procedurally, I have an additional motion that's on top of the report. So this report would be separate from that motion, but they are linked.
Through to the chair, did you just want to make an amendment to this motion, or is it?
I can do it as an amendment, yes. Okay, so I need to hand over the chair to the vice chair.
I have the chair recognizing Councillor Ferreira.
Thank you, Vice Chair. So my amendment would be to have staff look into the incidents of goose/human encounters and how many complaints we've had submitted to the city with that. That would be per location of where they would occur and the frequency of that, so we can provide that information to the Community Advisory Committee. And that's because the Community Advisory Committee is looking to reduce those encounters, just because there have been situations, I'm sure we're all aware, some dangerous situations that can happen between people and the geese that we have here, and they are focusing on the environmental aspect of it all, because we can tell that with the signage and other measures that we've taken in the past, that hasn't worked, but with the environmental aspect, just making it not so goose-friendly for geese to hang out in areas, specific areas. We just want to separate those encounters. So that's what my motion is. It's basically, the gist of it would be to just get that data of where the complaints have come in from the community on their encounters with geese, and that data would also include the location, and it would be requesting the frequency of how many complaints we've had per location. And that motion is an e-scribe as well. So I'll be moving that, and I would look for a seconder.
Okay, so if you refresh e-scribe, that is a part D as loaded in there, moved by Councillor Ferreira, looking for a seconder. The clerk might have to help me as I can't see Chambers. Okay, I'll second it. So it's on the floor. Happy to start a speakers list, realizing this is just a staff report back to the appropriate standing committee.
Vice Chair, I have Councillor McAllister raising his hand.
Okay, Councillor McAllister, please proceed.
Thank you, and through staff, I can now add goose conflicts to my bingo card of things I didn't think I'd be discussing. So I'm just genuinely curious, do we even have stats on this? Is
Okay,
this something
thank
that's
you.
reported to staff?
Yeah, to staff, looking for general comments of, do we track this already, or how much workload would this actually be putting onto your plates for staff availability?
I'll try.
Through you, Madam Chair. Madam
Yep, presiding officer,
Presiding
I'm
Officer,
good.
thank you. So actually, this is something that Ms. Scher's group is actually taking on right now. They have somebody at the committees, they're looking at this kind of information. So their plan was to report back at some point, either through committee or directly to council at some point, likely in the fall, October, November timeframe.
Okay, thank you for that. So it seems that staff's already on it within their current workload and complement. Councilor McAllister, would you have a follow-up?
Yes, thank you, and through the presiding officer. So I guess my follow-up question, because it was specifically referenced, the only complaints that I've received typically about the splash pads. So I'm just wondering, in terms of our aquatics staff, is this something we often hear about? I know it's a problem with the wave pool, splash pads, but what do we hear from that department? Thanks.
Thank you. To staff?
Thank you, and through the chair, while I don't have any hard data or stats today, we certainly can say that anecdotally, we hear that on those sites where those splash pads and spray pads are, but we have an incredible aquatic operations teams who inspect those every morning and every day, and so they would deal with it at that time. So I don't have any hard data for you right now. A lot of things in our world are mentioned to staff on site and can be a little more anecdotal, but we certainly have good strategies in place to keep our spray pads and splash pads as clean as we can for Londoners.
Thank you, Mr. McGonigal. Councilor McAllister.
I'm all done with my questions. Thank you.
Okay, looking for further questions or comments on this item?
Presiding chair, no one in the gallery or in the chambers has their hand up.
Perfect. Seeing none, calling the question.
I apologize.
So I can take it. Vice Chair, I think Councilor Pribble has just put his hand up. He may have a question.
Perfect. Councilor Pribble.
Thank you. I just have a question that right now we are just really doing the additional motion. We are not going to the original one, correct?
Yeah, this is
Just the amendment. Correct.
amendment, so part D. Yes. Okay, so calling the question.
Costa votes yes.
Closing the vote, the motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Is there any further speakers? As amended, parts A through D.
Vice Chair, I have Councilor Pribble raising his hand.
Okay. Procedurally, to the city clerk, as it's been amended and Councilor Ferrer's motion is now part of the entirety, is it procedurally the opportune time to hand back chair? I would believe so. Okay, so happy to do that. So return the chair to Councilor Ferrer. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Pelosi. I appreciate it. I will look to Councilor Pribble for his question.
Thank you, and I do have a comment and question as well. The comment I will start with, and under the A, when it says recommendation to our staff, when it comes back, and this is actually from the conclusion from the letter of this committee, you know, that addressing people, the health of the environment and wildlife, if those could be covered in those recommendations, and also the financial considerations. I don't need to add this, change the motion, but that would be my expectation when it comes back. I don't know if there is any comment or question from the staff.
Thank you, Councilor. I have no comments from staff at the moment.
Okay. Thank you for that. And last, because this was, unless I missed it, if it was circulated before, these clauses, this is the first time I see the motion. And there are certain clauses that are listed here. And it's in front of me to be approved. And is this supposed to be from the presentation? So let's say it's clause 1.1 from number 1, landscape principles to decrease habitat suitability. And then the point 1 would be reduce slight lines. Is that what it is? Because as I said, I saw this first time a few minutes ago.
Thank you, Councilor. I do not believe we have staff here to answer that question. So from the chair, let me just try to see if I can give some comments on that. In the consent items, 3.1, and that is the report from the Animal Welfare Advisory Committee. That consent item attaches in all of the items for discussion. And the one item specific to the motion that I have put forward is for the Canada Geese recommendations. Hopefully that answers your question the best that I can.
Sorry, Chair, it actually does not. So if I look at, is this taken, these clauses, if I look at the presentation that we have attached on page, I'm just trying to see which clause, because if I'm approving something, I want to know at least what I'm approving. One point on page presentation, page 15, there is paragraph 1, and before, under is 1, 2, 3, 4. So would I consider point 1.1 in this section, or where? I'm just trying to figure out what I'm approving.
Through the chair, bear with me. I'm going to try to explain this. I'm not great at explaining things. Part A of the motion relates to part 5 or clause 5.2 on the Animal Welfare Community Advisory Committee report. Part B of the motion relates to item 5.3 on the Animal Welfare Community Advisory Committee report. Clause C, or Part C of this motion, is approving just the motions within the Animal Welfare Community Advisory Committee report that didn't require any action. So that would be 1.1, 3.1, 4.1, 5.1, 5.4, and 5.5. And then Part D of the motion, the amended motion, is the new part that was brought forward by Councillor Ferreira.
Thank you. So to clarify this, the clause is 1.1. We are going back to the advisory committee report. Just their report. We are not going to the attached agenda that came through, that was presented by the, from the presentation that they received in September. So these clauses are virtually just to do 2 pages, 1 and 2 and 3 of today's agenda. Okay, I see nodding, so thank you for that. So right now, to be honest with you, I'm just quickly going to go through it. I'm not ready to vote on that, be approved, because now I know what it's concerning. So I'll go through it first. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Trussell.
I think through the chair, and maybe this is addressed to the clerk, when we receive reports from advisory committees that have in them specific recommendations, for example, what's on page 4 through 7 of this report, at the top it says recommendation to the City Council. Might it be useful if when we publish the CPPS committee agenda, instead of it just saying 8th report of the Animal Welfare Advisory Committee, that we also indicate that there is specific recommendation language, and in fact, if that's attached to the agenda, everyone will know exactly what is being proposed. My bigger concern is if and this is in general, if a standing committee simply adopted the consent item 2.1, how would the City Council and the public know that the recommendation that's on page 4 through 7 is included in that report? So what I'm suggesting is, for clarity, and this has come up before with some of the recommendations from the Transportation Committee, for example. I think it would be useful to just attach, does not need to be incorporated into the motion, but it should just say see attachment, Animal Welfare Community Advisory Committee recommendation to City of London, pages 4 through 7. And that way people would know what was behind this, without having to go through other documents that are not on the face of the report. That's just a suggestion.
Okay, hold on. Thank you, Councillor. I will go to the clerk.
Through the chair, I can speak to this as the clerk for the Community and Protective Services Committee. When an advisory committee report is on an agenda, the expectation is that any clauses within that report that have a direction or a request would be pulled out as in the motion that needs to be passed by committee. So if the committee members read the committee reports and see that there is an action item within an advisory committee, then it would maybe be advisable to have that item be pulled so the committee can discuss what those action items are. The clerk of the committee, of the standing committee, drafts a motion pulling those items out as separate items for voting. But you wouldn't see that until the meeting. As for changing the agenda format to have those motions on the agenda, I would have to defer to the city clerk on that.
Thank you, and I believe we have another take on, yeah, okay, so Sarah Corman from the clerk's office also would like to speak to this, so I'll go to Sarah.
Yes, through the chair, Jerry has summarized the process. If there is a change going forward, there is a policy on the general policy for advisory committees coming forward to GWG. And I suspect if there's a change in process that it could be discussed at that time.
Thank you. Councillor? Thank you, Councillor. I have Councillor Pribble. You have 2 minutes and 38 seconds left.
Thank you, and I'm a little bit, I understand now which clauses it goes through, but this is the first time we are doing advisory committee and we have some clauses to be approved with actually 4.1, for example, which I would be actually interested, what was the dog-friendly London, the proposal or something that was presented by MRIST, which again, it was just received. I really don't see a reason for C. I don't believe we've ever done that, and I think that for us to approve clauses that actually are even received by the committee, I actually would like the C to be removed, and I'm putting a motion to remove clause C entirely. I don't see a reason for it, and again, we've never done it before. And again, we are not doing anything, and to approve 4.1, which I don't know what it was about, just received, I don't see any benefit in C at all. Thank you.
Which one is C?
Councillor, you can pull that separately if you'd like. The one that...
Okay, so I would like to vote separate on C, which lists the 5 clauses. And again, just for my colleagues, please do look at their report and to really think about it, if this is something that we want to start doing with, and especially if it was just really even just not even approved, just received by the committee, if this is really what we want to start doing with advisory committees. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. From my understanding, I believe that this is the process, but if you would like to pull C, we can do that and vote on that separately. Are you okay with voting on the other items together, or is it just C that you want to pull out?
I'm okay with the other ones. I would like to just pull out C.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. We can do that. Looking to committee for any further questions? Councillor McAllister.
Thank you, and through the chair. And just because I'm trying to clarify what Councillor Pribble is talking about, I mean, to me, this is just like approving minute meetings. Like there's nothing. I'm fine with voting on this because literally it's just a record of what was discussed at the meeting, and I've gone through it. And I mean, one of the items is Paul Luza talking about the preparation for that event. Like there's nothing substantial outside of a normal committee discussion. So I'm fine to vote on this. I don't think there's anything to be concerned about. It's just a housekeeping item. This is how I view it.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll go back to Councillor Pribble. You have 54 seconds left.
I'll be very brief. Usually these reports, when we receive them, and if it's something like this in exactly the same way, we just receive it for information. So I really don't know why we are approving anything, because there's nothing really to be approved, because again, not even the committee approved it. They just received it. So I really don't know why we don't just receive this, just like from the other committees. One of the clauses will be, we receive this for information.
Thank you, Councillor. Just give me a second. I'll go to Councillor Trusso in a second.
Thank you through the chair and to the clerk. I'm just.
Councillor, please, just a second. I'll recognize you in a second. Okay, Councillor Trusso.
Thank you to the chair. I'm referring to the word recommendation in the heading of what was received from the committee. There is actually a recommendation here. And I think we receive most of the reports from advisory committees we receive don't have specific recommendations in them, but sometimes they do. And when they do, I think it's important that we be cognizant of the fact that one of our advisory committees, and this is not just for this is in general, one of our advisory committees has made a recommendation, and we need to decide whether or not we want to move that recommendation forward. And we very clearly have a very, very long set of documents that have been appended here, but we also have a much shorter set of 3 pages that use the word recommendation. And this word recommendation, it appeared, the entirety of it was in the packet. We all had the chance to read it. I don't think there's anything controversial here, but I think we should understand that when an advisory committee comes forth with a recommendation, they're asking us to do a little bit more than simply note and file their committee report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Pribble, you have 23 seconds.
I completely agree with my fellow Councillor Trusso, and we did the same thing with for LTC with transportation. But the part actually is that I see that there are 2 recommendations that I went through, which are actually good, positive. But when I look at these points, that's not. If I go through them, and as I said, I just received first saw it 15 minutes ago, I just don't see these recommendations being in these 5 points that we are approving. But we are approving disclosure of pecuniary interest. We are improving that. We are improving a report for dog-friendly London, which we haven't received. That's the part I don't understand.
Thank you, Councillor. You are out of time. I let you go over about 10 seconds. Looking to the rest of the committee, comments, questions? Okay, let's call the vote. This is for everything with the exception of Part C. Part C will be voted on after this one. First we can.
Yes, please.
Okay, we will call the vote for C first.
Trusso votes yes.
Closing the vote, the motion carries 4-1.
Okay, and we will call the question for the remainder of the items.
Trusso votes yes.
Closing the vote, the motion carries 5-0.
That is it for items for direction. I have nothing for deferred matters or additional business, and that leaves us with adjournment. Looking for a mover to adjourn. Councillor Trusso, seconded by Councillor McAllister. This is a hand vote. Everyone in favor to adjourn? That motion carries. Thank you.